After making it all the way to the Super Bowl just last season and coming up a little bit short of winning it all, the Philadelphia Eagles will hope to finish what they started this upcoming season in 2023, but there will be multiple other teams heading into next year that are looking to challenge the Eagles for the NFC's throne. However, there is good reason to believe that the Eagles are on a different level than any of these teams, and these teams should actually fear the Eagles, not just because of what they can be next season, but because they have the potential to run the NFC for years to come. And we're going to talk all about that in this video today, but before we do that, make sure you go down and subscribe to this channel for more consistent Philadelphia Eagles content coming throughout this entire offseason and moving into next season. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a like on this video if you do enjoy. And now with all that being said, let's get into the video. The Eagles' success last season was made even more impressive by the fact that just 2 seasons prior to that, they were just 4-11-1 and finishing last place in one of the worst divisions in NFL history. So then over the next 2 seasons, not only did the Eagles dig themselves out of the hole that they had created for themselves, but they had built a winning culture and they had created the most talented roster in football as they put together a team that was just 1 drive away from winning Super Bowl 57 versus the Chiefs. But of course, anyone in the Eagles organization will tell you that that was not the goal. The Eagles want to win it all, and obviously to do that, they're going to have to make it through the NFC, and there's definitely some talented teams in the NFC conference that are going to look to challenge for the Eagles' throne next season. But if you look at it from the perspective of the Eagles, I mean, what team in the NFC truly scares you? I mean, let's just look at it team by team here. So let's start with what I think a lot of people consider to be the Eagles' biggest threat in the NFC, and that is the San Francisco 49ers. Now, obviously, the Niners are one of the more talented teams in the entire NFL themselves. Last year, they had a phenomenal season, having a 12-game win streak that led all the way to the NFC Championship game, where obviously they did lose to the Philadelphia Eagles. And like I said, they are one of the more talented rosters in all of football. On offense, they got some great weapons, and then on defense, they're arguably the best defense in the entire NFL, and they had some key additions in the offseason, including Eagles' former defensive tackle Javon Hargrave. So when you look at the Niners, definitely, like I said, a lot of people consider them to be the Eagles' biggest challenge in the NFC conference, but there is one big question with that team, and that of course is the quarterback position, as of course the guy who ended up starting for the 49ers down the stretch at quarterback last season in Brock Purdy went down with an elbow injury in the NFC Championship game versus the Eagles. We don't exactly know when he's going to recover from that, and aside from Brock Purdy, they have a couple other options at quarterback, Sam Darnold probably being the most notable one. If I had to guess, he would be the guy who starts for the 49ers in the early parts of the season. That's one big question mark for the Niners, and I definitely could see them having a rough start because of that. And when Brock Purdy gets back, again, you don't know exactly what he's going to be. He was a little bit of a surprise last season, obviously being Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the entire draft. Who knows how he's going to look when he comes back from injury, so the 49ers definitely have a big question mark at the quarterback position. And then moving on, you have a team in the Dallas Cowboys who are probably the Eagles' biggest rival in general, and they're a pretty talented team as well. Obviously, last season they were able to make it to the divisional round in the playoffs where they lost to the San Francisco 49ers, and they did have some solid moves this offseason as well. They added Brandon Cooks, they added Stephon Gilmore, but the thing about the Cowboys is you just simply can't trust them. They obviously have not been to the NFC Championship in 27 years, which is absolutely insane, especially after all the success. The Cowboys fans will tell you all the success they had in the 90s and the 70s, but recently they have not had a lot of success under owner Jerry Jones, and I really find it hard to believe that the Cowboys are going to come in here this season with the roster they currently have and make a legit Super Bowl run, knowing that in just recent years past, they've had more talented rosters than they have right now, and they weren't able to capitalize on it. And obviously, Dak last season didn't look as good as he has in years before that, so I really do find it hard to believe that the Cowboys can come out here and put together a run to win the NFC and challenge the Eagles. And I think if you also stack their rosters up against each other, the Eagles have the edge in most of the categories. And then you have a team in the Detroit Lions who are looking to be contenders for the first time in a long time. Obviously, they have not been very successful in the entire history of their franchise, and this is kind of the team that I feel like every NFL fan, at least most NFL fans, want to see them succeed next season. They obviously had a pretty good season last year, finishing with a record of 9-8 and bouncing the Packers out of the playoffs in the final week of the regular season and beating Aaron Rodgers in his final game as a Green Bay Packer. And then this offseason, they obviously made some moves. They got some talent. They obviously got CJ Gardner-Johnson from the Eagles, and they made a couple other key acquisitions, whether that be in free agency and through the draft. But the thing about the Detroit Lions is they're not experienced, they're young, and they just haven't been there before. And I still think that despite the fact that they do have talent, I don't think that they have as much talent as a team like the Eagles, as a team like the 49ers, even as a team like the Dallas Cowboys. And although I think they'll do well this season, I don't see them being a legitimate threat to win the NFC conference and beat out the Eagles for that top spot. And then I think you have a team in the Seattle Seahawks who are in a pretty similar situation, as last season they obviously had a really successful season after trading away their franchise quarterback in Russell Wilson. People thought they were going to absolutely suck, and they proved everyone wrong. They actually made the playoffs with Geno Smith as the starting quarterback. He played extremely well, and he also got a solid contract extension. So the Seahawks are trusting him, at least moving forward this season and maybe a little bit beyond that. And they do also have a lot of talent on their roster. They got some offensive weapons. They got good defensive players as well. They're well coached, and they obviously drafted very well, getting two very talented players in the first round in Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith-Njigba. But they're similar to the Lions in that they're unproven, they're young. I don't exactly trust Geno Smith to be a quarterback that can guide you to the NFC Championship, to the Super Bowl. Despite how good he was last year, I don't exactly think the Seahawks are a legit Super Bowl contender, and I don't think they can beat out the Eagles for that top spot, like I said about the Lions. Same goes for the New York Giants. Obviously, last season they had a phenomenal season because no one expected them to be good, and they actually went out there and they made the playoffs, and they won a playoff game until they eventually lost to the Philadelphia Eagles by a score of 38-7 in a dominating fashion. But, obviously, they overachieved last year. Brian Daboll came in and he won Coach of the Year, and deservedly so because he was great. He got the most out of Daniel Jones and a roster that was void of talent, and he helped Daniel Jones earn a pretty big contract extension. I don't think anyone would have expected he ended up getting what he got this offseason just before this prior season played out. And the Giants did add some players this offseason, notably Darren Waller from the Las Vegas Raiders, but they still don't really have very many wide receivers. They still need to add some talent in some other areas of their team, and I think, this season they're going to be tested a lot more because they have some stiffer competition that they're going to have to go up against, and Daniel Jones is going to be forced to prove that he can do what he did last season. He wasn't even, statistically speaking, that amazing last year, so they're probably going to be looking for improvement from him. So the Giants are a team that I feel like it's going to be interesting to see what they are next year. Was last year a building year for them where they're building towards something, or was it just a fluke? I'm curious to see that, but either way, I really don't see the Giants being a legit Super Bowl contender or the threat to the Eagles really at all. And then you have a team in the Minnesota Vikings who they obviously won their division last year. They made the playoffs, but they got bounced in the first round by the New York Giants, and there's definitely a lot of questions surrounding that team as well. Obviously, they do have some talent on the offensive side of the ball, notably Justin Jefferson, but people question Kirk Cousins' ability in big moments. Dalvin Cook might get released this offseason, and then their defense last season was really subpar. It was one of the worst in the entire NFL, and it obviously cost them in their playoff loss to the Giants. Daniel Jones was actually great in that game. He probably had the best game of his entire career, and I think this is a team that a lot of people are picking to have a worse season than they had last year. So again, I don't see them being a legit threat to the Eagles at all. So again, if you look at all these teams, which one are you legitimately scared of if you are the Philadelphia Eagles? And another thing is, if you do look at these teams and you look at the rosters that they have, the Eagles clearly have the most talented roster of the bunch. I mean, they have the least holes. I mean, if you look at a lot of these other teams, you can see clear holes and areas of their roster that they have to address, but I don't think the Eagles really have that, at least not to the extent of these other teams. I mean, you can make an argument maybe they should add another safety, maybe they have to address linebacker, but that's really it. And the thing about the Eagles is they're never done adding talent. I mean, at this point in the offseason, a lot of the other teams are sitting back looking at their roster chilling, while the Eagles are out there still looking to improve. Howie Roseman is obviously notorious for making moves late in the offseason when no one expects it. They obviously were able to do it last year, so who knows, maybe one of these surprise moves could be on the horizon for Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles, as somehow the Eagles are top 10 in the NFL in terms of cap space with $14.9 million to spend. So I would be shocked if the Eagles and Howie Roseman didn't take advantage of that and make some other move to improve their roster. Maybe they add a safety, maybe they add a linebacker. You never really know what Howie Roseman is going to do, but anything is possible, especially given that they have as much cap space as they do. And we also know at this point that Howie Roseman is the best GM in the NFL. He's already had a great offseason. I think a lot of people thought that the Eagles would be significantly worse this season than they were last season because of the amount of free agents that they were set to lose this offseason. And while, don't get me wrong, they did lose plenty of those guys, Howie Roseman also found a way to keep a lot of the key players that were set to leave. And for the guys that they did lose, they were able to find very good replacements, and they were able to get these guys for better value than the guys that walked away. away, and oftentimes they were able to get younger in the process. And in addition, we also know how great of a draft Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles had. I mean, it was rated the best draft of any of the 32 teams. They obviously were able to get two potential top 10 talents in this draft in Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith at number 9 and number 30 respectively. They also were able to find some steals in later rounds, and they also made a trade to get an extremely talented player in DeAndre Swift from the Lions, who not only filled a position of need at running back with Miles Sanders leaving this offseason, but they also barely gave up anything in the trade, and they also were able to pull it off when the Lions were reportedly desperately trying to avoid trading him to the Eagles, and they still found a way to make it happen. I mean, it's gotten to the point where Howie Roseman had such a great draft that other GMs around the NFL are reportedly mad about how much praise he was receiving. And something else that makes the job that Howie Roseman has done and the way the Eagles have constructed their roster so impressive is that it's not like they've just gone all in for a year or two. No, the Eagles are built for success not just for now, but for the foreseeable future. I mean, it's not like the Eagles have spent and got rid of a bunch of future capital like high draft picks over the next few years to get the roster that they have today, say like a team like the Los Angeles Rams, and that is how the Rams ended up winning a Super Bowl, but now they're at a point where they might be on the decline for a few years now and they might not be a very good football team. The Eagles, they haven't done that at all, and they have a chance to be really good for the next, say, 5 to 10 years. I mean, if you look at their roster, the Eagles are also have an extremely high amount of young talent, and while they do have some key older players, some of these guys are going to retire in the near future, some might leave the team in free agency. The Eagles have gone out, and they have added talented guys who are ready to fill in as replacements. And something else that's really important is that the Eagles have built a culture that is a winning culture, and it tends to get the best out of their younger players. You know, it's defined by hard work, focusing on the small details, and giving 100% effort every single play, every single day leading into the game. And I think these young guys are going to come in here, they're going to buy into that culture, which Nick Sirianni and that Eagles coaching staff have built over the past couple seasons. And as long as they're willing to work and the talent is there, they should be able to develop into very good players as well once these older guys are gone. And I do think that the culture Sirianni has built over the past couple seasons is a really underrated aspect of the Eagles' success. I mean, he's got all the guys to buy in 100%, and it clearly worked as they were able to get to the Super Bowl in just Sirianni's second season as the head coach. And then, of course, we can't talk about the Philadelphia Eagles without talking about probably their biggest advantage over the rest of the NFC, and that is that they have Jalen Hurts as their franchise quarterback. I think Jalen Hurts is by far the best quarterback in the NFC currently. I mean, if you just take a look down the list, who's the next closest guy? Dak Prescott, Geno Smith, Brock Purdy. Like, you can't really point to one guy and say, yeah, they're probably better than Jalen Hurts. I think it's pretty clear that Hurts is the #1 quarterback in the NFC conference, and Jalen Hurts is a guy who, he's gotten better every single year that he's been in the league. He's got to the point where he's become an MVP candidate, and he's only going to continue to work hard and continue improving because that's just his mentality. That's what he's made of, and that's what he values. And he's just 24 years old. He has yet to reach his ceiling, and Jalen Hurts is also, I think everyone knows, he's an incredible leader. That's one of the best parts about having him as their franchise quarterback. I mean, he's a guy who wants to win more than anything. Obviously, he did get a huge extension this offseason, which briefly made him the highest paid player in NFL history, but he didn't get a lot of guaranteed money. I mean, he did get a lot of guaranteed money in the contract, but relative to the total amount that the contract is worth, it really was not that much. And if you look at some of the other contracts that guys like Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson are getting with the guaranteed money that they're earning, Jalen Hurts definitely took a discount there. And this long-term contract that they gave Jalen Hurts allows for flexibility moving forward, and it's going to allow the Eagles to continue adding talent around him, which obviously they already have a bunch of young players that are going to be here for years to come. But if they want to add even more players, they definitely are going to be able to go out and do that. Obviously, like I said, right now, Eagles are top 10 in cap space. So when you look at all these things, you look at their current roster, you look at how it's constructed for current and future success, you look at the fact that they have a young franchise quarterback who's a phenomenal leader and who's only going to continue to get better. You have a young, successful head coach in Nick Sirianni. You have the best GM in football who knows how to build a roster, who knows how to build a team that can get to the Super Bowl and win it, as we've seen in the past. I think it's pretty clear that the Eagles are the team that has set the standard in the NFC conference, and they're definitely the clear favorites moving forward into next season, and their future is extremely bright. And a lot of the other teams in the NFC, while some are good, they're not nearly what the Philadelphia Eagles have the potential to be, and all these other teams in the NFC conference should be afraid of what the Eagles have the potential to be, not just this season, but moving down the road for years to come. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this video, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you think the Eagles have the potential to run the NFC conference for the next, let's say, 5 years? I'd love to hear about it. And if you did enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like on it and subscribe so you don't miss others like it coming coming in the future. And if you want to watch another Eagles video, you can go watch this one right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.